Welcome to the collection of the wildest and craziest AITA Reddit stories of all time. From wild betrayals to shocking twists, these tales will leave you questioning who is really in the wrong. Let's dive in together. The first story for this collection is from Recognition Naive 4365. My hostile dog attacked a child who was messing up with the dog. AITA for bringing the dog out. I'm a 17 female, and I got my dog a 1.5 years ago at 8 weeks as a gift from my parents. He is a pitbull/boxer/German Shepherd mix at 80 pounds, all white with black spots and a black eye patch and bright blue eyes. Very pretty dog. He has never been a socially adept dog towards people, very nervous. So, I started socializing him after he went to the vet a few days after I got him, and he advised me that my dog needed to be socialized ASAP, and that he will always be a nervous, socially anxious dog, but needs to be socialized to where he can be around people without becoming aggressive, otherwise it becomes dangerous. So that's exactly what I did. Almost every day I took him to the dog park to be around other dogs and people. He is perfectly fine walking, running and playing around strangers until they approach him, to which he will bark and run away. Most people, when they first meet him, comment, "Oh, look at your eyes," and ask to pet him, so I tell them he doesn't like strangers. Everyone at the dog park knows this and respects it. A few of them have gotten to the point where they can pet him, as they've seen him often enough and he knows them. I am content with this arrangement. He is well trained otherwise and loves playing fetch. The issue arose when two seemingly unsupervised kids came into the park wanting to pet the dogs. While he is an off-leash dog, I will come into the park if there are people in the field next to the park to avoid issues, or if there are dogs in the park. This time was when there were people in the field, and so I was the only one in the park at the time playing fetch. I was sitting on the bench with him bringing me the ball to throw, and the two boys came over and asked what his name was. Kids have way too much energy, and the desperation energy around them doesn't sit right with my dog. I told them his name, and they both went to go try to pet him. His fur went up, and he let out a low growl before snatching his ball and walking away. Both boys looked disappointed, so I apologized and said, "He's not friendly to strangers." I assumed that would be the end of it, as one of the boys turned to leave. However, the other one decided to walk towards my dog calling his name. My dog let off a low, uncomfortable growl and walked away, to which the boy still followed him while calling his name and holding out his hand for my dog to come smell. I repeated again, "He isn't friendly," and I got ignored. The boy wanting to leave looked uncomfortable. I called my dog to me, as I wanted him in arm's reach, and the boy following him decided this was the perfect opportunity to come closer. Now while he is a very nervous dog, and is a very attached to me, meaning he is defensive, calling him over maybe wasn't the smartest choice, as instead of running away, he went into defending me against what he considered a threat. So, when the boy came up, instead of running, he stood his ground and started barking. Ball still in his mouth, barking fur up and doing that jumping thing. He wasn't moving towards the boy, but I still got up and asked what he was doing, and the boy finally acknowledged me and left with his friend. I was naive to think that would be the end, as a little while later, his mother came back in and got mad at me for not allowing her son to pet my dog. I was honestly kind of shocked and didn't know how to react. I told her that he isn't friendly to strangers, and it is dangerous for everyone for him to try to pet my dog, so I didn't let him. I guess I said the wrong thing, as she accused me of letting a vicious, aggressive pit bull into a public space with little kids. I was already about to leave, as my dog was worn out enough, so I got up without saying anything and went to leave to avoid making it worse. My dog got up and trotted after me. She ran and blocked the gate, saying she was calling the cops and having my dog put down. I didn't want to try to move her, as I didn't feel like having to go through her accusing me of assaulting her, so I walked back to the bench and called my father, letting him know what was happening and asked him to come over and help me leave. For a little context, my father is very involved in the community. He works with the police department a lot and is very politically involved. So when he heard she threatened to call the cops, he let me know that he would call the sheriff directly to come over with another officer and told me to not say anything to her. So I did as direct. A few minutes later, 2 officers arrived with my father soon after. She started crying to the officers how I was harassing her and her son after her son asked to pet my dog, and she was blocking the gate still, and was too hysterical to move. So, my father just climbed over the fence to go talk to me and check on my dog. I got him on a leash. I hadn't before, as I didn't want the kid running up to him when I wasn't paying attention and my dog not being able to run away, while they spoke with the mother. Then they spoke with me and my father to get my side of the story. And the whole time, my dog sat at my side, watching the officers without being aggressive. Come to find out, she hadn't called the cops like she threatened, as threatening to have my dog put down and blocking us from leaving the park can be argued as false imprisonment. And so the officers asked if I wanted to press charges. I declined, but asked if there would be a note on her record for future incidents, to which they said they would make a note of it in the system. I glanced over at her, and she had a smug grin on her face as if saying, "I won." It was very satisfying to watch it drop, as the officers walked over and had her move over, while me and my father left, and she was being told that she was lucky I wasn't pressing charges. Hearing her whine about how unfair it was, blah 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 blah, was very satisfying. While I think I handled this well, and my father is on my side, my mother thinks I went too far. That should have just had my dog jump the fence and climbed over myself and left instead of involving the cops, especially in front of the young boy. I was asked at the dog park about it the next day. As community dog park having cops show up and my dog being recognizable, I explained, and one family, who has a young girl about the same age as the boy, sided with me while others seemed uncomfortable but didn't say anything. Now I'm feeling like I might have gone too far with how I handled the situation, and I could have left a different way, but I also didn't choose to press charges, and just wanted it to be handled without me getting in trouble. But now I feel as I might have taken it too far. So, AITA for calling the sheriff after bringing my hostile dog to the dog park? I don't feel as though I am, but I'd just like the final confirmation. Edit. I would like to make an edit for clarification. This is an off-leash dog park. Dogs are specifically not allowed to be leashed at this park, as it can become a tangled mess. There is a kids' playground that is also fenced in down the street. Both are gated. He is not a friendly dog. That is not the same as being aggressive. He doesn't like strangers approaching him before he is ready. How would you like it if someone almost twice as tall as you came walking up, hands out wanting to pet you, when you can just feel their desire leeching off of them, without knowing what that desire is for? What if it was to harm you? You'd want them to leave you alone, right? He is perfectly fine with people walking past him, and will even sniff them as we walk past sometimes. He will play around them, and run past them, and brush up against them. What he doesn't like is when people reach for him or walk towards him. I am also seeing a lot of comments about me mentioning he is an off-leash dog. Yes, he is. He is trained to come back to me and walk at my hip without a leash. He is trained to play fetch and retrieve for hours on end due to his energy levels. He is not an aggressive dog. He will not go out of his way to go after people. He will run away from people if they come up to him when he doesn't like it. The field next to the park is where we normally go. It is no different than me going to the beach or the dog park. It is just a place for him to run. I chose not to go into the field as there was other people there. I know my dog would have ignored them unless they interrupted us playing fetch, but when you have an off-leash dog that is clearly trained when he brings the ball, drops it at your feet, and sits waiting for you to throw it, you will ask if you can pet it, assuming it's friendly. I went to the dog park to avoid something like this happening. OP is not an AH for taking her dog to the park. She had already alerted the boys not to play with her dog because of his nervous nature, but the boy continued. The child's mother is an AH for being aggressive towards OP and threatening to call the police. OP did nothing wrong, and her reaction is 100% justified. So, I would rate the boy's mother 2.5 and OP 0 out of 5 on the AH scale. Let's now move on to the next story from scary_distance_5448 AITA. For not dropping everything to console my husband every time he breaks down. I, 37F, have been married to my husband, 40M, for 8 years and have been with him for 10 years. We also have a 1-year-old, and since our baby girl was born, I have gone back to work, but only work 15 to 20 hours a week, making about $1,500 a month. The past 4 years have been very trying for us due to financial issues related to a lawsuit he has been fighting, which has cost him a lot of money and stress. I tell him and not us because he is the breadwinner in our family, and although I work part-time, it's in retail. And when we first met before we got married, he bought the house we live in based on his income and not mine. The lawsuit he is fighting for is worth him fighting for, as he is a partial owner of a business, and his partner one day decided he didn't want my husband to be a part of it, and decided to just kick him out of the business and stop paying him quarterly for what the business brings in. So, I have faith that he will eventually get paid for this once the courts have settled it, but I also know that there's no telling how long it will be until something is decided, as it's already been 4 years and not settled yet. This has caused him, and I, a lot of stress, and has drained his bank account's backlog. I should add that prior to this, life was good. He never looked at prices of things, always had money. We would go on vacations, but now we never have money. He lashes out on me for not contributing enough financially, but I pay for groceries, etc. And food for our baby and 2 dogs. One of them being diabetic and needing special food and insulin every month. I also pay for our part-time nanny 1 day a week. For the past year or 2, my husband will wake up in the middle of the night and start crying, and sometimes when I'd ask what's wrong, he'd lash out at me and tell me I'm clueless and have no idea what's going on in his life, but that maybe if I paid a bill, I'd have a clue. One of our dogs, the non-diabetic dog, but bigger and can be aggressive, can sense my husband's energy/emotions and has started to bark aggressively now when she hears him start yelling or crying, which will upset my husband more, make him yell even louder at the dog, and I will not yell at the dog and rather make sure our 1-year-old is safe and try to keep her from being frightened, which ultimately ends up with my husband getting even more angry than I am, choosing to make sure the dogs and baby are taken care of and not him. At first, I would get up and console him, but as time goes on, it has become a daily thing, and I'm becoming numb to this. I feel like I'm constantly trying to cheer him up, while also trying to not let myself go into a depression for our child, and have mastered the art of putting on a happy face and blocking out the bad stuff so I can focus on having positive energy for our child and dogs for that matter. The kind of outbursts he has, which are daily, mind you, involve him yelling at the top of his lungs, veins popping out of his head, the kind of yelling where your voice kind of has a high pitch to it, like in the movies when someone is about to explode, followed by sobbing. 1 minute he's screaming at me for not caring enough about him or paying a bill, and the next he's crying. So I clearly don't feel like running over to him to give him a hug after he's had his outbursts. I should also add that after our baby was born, he started accusing me of cheating on him, which I am not, saying I'm always on my phone, and it's gotten so bad that he will regularly wake me up in the middle of the night, accusing me of texting or even FaceTiming someone while in the same bed next to him. I've given him permission to look at my phone whenever he wants. I've even put my phone on opposite side of bedroom so he can't accuse me of being on it at night, but he's now saying that I must have a secret device I'm messaging people on and that he can hear me texting. He says the reason for him believing I'm cheating on him is because I clearly don't have affection towards him and our lack of life lately. I've told him that I'm constantly exhausted due to being a first-time mother, and that when accuses me of cheating on him, that too doesn't help me want to have. I love my husband and hate seeing him like this. I keep telling myself that once the financial issues subside, we'll be better, but it's changing me as a person. I'm no longer the happy person I used to be, and he's become so angry that I even hesitate to bring him around friends or family in fear that he'll have an outburst towards me in front of them or at them. I don't want to leave him, as I feel like he has no one left. He's ruined a lot of his relationships the past few years because of his anger, and people just don't feel comfortable around him. He used to be so fun to be around. Now people don't want to be around us because you never know what you'll get. He doesn't care if my mother or brother are visiting, and will even have one of his outbursts towards me, calling me everything under the sun with them in the same room. It's embarrassing, and puts my family in an uncomfortable situation as well. He claims that if I gave him the love and respect he's been asking for the past few years, that he wouldn't be this way. Is this really my fault? Am I really a bad and selfish person who doesn't care about him? I don't think this is my fault, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm not seeing something. Should I be dropping everything every time he starts crying and run over him to tell him everything will be okay? Even though there's a chance he'll yell at me for not being aware of anything? I just don't know what to do anymore. OP is not an AH for prioritizing her emotional well-being. OP's husband is an AH for yelling and creating troubles for OP. He should be supportive instead of being aggressive towards OP. OP's reaction is 100% justified, so I would rate OP's husband 3.5 out of 5 and OP 0 out of 5 on the AH scale. Let's now jump on to the next story from randomokgirl_24. AITA for communicating that if my brother is present, my family will not be. I, 24F, and my husband, 25M, relocated over the last year to another state. Both our families still live in our home state, and part of the reason for moving to give us some distance. Because we haven't been long distance from our families very long, we committed to being home for the holidays. We would split the trip, spend Thanksgiving and Black Friday morning with my in-laws, then drive 2 hours to my family to spend Friday evening and Saturday with them, leaving Sunday morning. Update: I really didn't expect this post to get so popular so quickly. To everyone who has urged me to see how toxic this situation is, and how important it is to separate myself and my husband, thank you. It's very humbling to have people with no skin in the game tell you to get out and stop allowing this type of behavior. This honestly isn't even the craziest situation that's happened over the years. For those emphasizing therapy to help navigate this properly, I 100% agree and have decided that's my most immediate next step. Also, to those saying I don't understand what my brother is going through or how hard his life is, everyone is entitled to their own viewpoint. But let me be clear. My brother has done everything from threaten my life to actually breaking my arm. I very ignorantly thought time in the army and away from home might be good for him and allow growth. Maybe giving us the chance to start fresh, but situations like these tell me that's not going to happen. So if I am the AH for cutting that type of abuse off, I'm okay with that. It's important to note a couple of things here. We live 8 hours from my in-laws and 10 hours from my parents. When we visit, the trip is very taxing mentally and financially, as we often drive through the night to make the most of our off days. I also have narcolepsy, so my husband usually takes the brunt of the drive. We do see my in-laws more as we have a better relationship with them, and they make more of an effort to travel to us as well. My family does not. Before leaving this year, I was intentional about communicating our boundaries over a phone call with my dad. The main one was that my younger brother, 20M, could not be rude to me or my husband because we would leave early. To be clear, when I say rude, I mean cussing us out, calling me the threatening us with violence, etc. This post would get way too long to give all the context, so the short and sweet of it is, my brother has always had behavior issues that require medication. When he hit puberty, most of those manifested into anger, and he was severely mentally and emotionally abusive to everyone in the house. Over the years, it's gotten less explosive and more calculated, and because of this, we don't have much of a relationship. My parents, especially my mom, have always made excuses for his behavior, saying, "That's just his diagnosis," or "That's just your brother," with the underlying implication that we should just accept it. They also won't acknowledge that said abuse ever occurred. Now, please hear me when I say I understand how complex behavioral diagnoses can be, and how taxing it is to go through all the medications, therapy, etc. But after growing up with two brothers who both have these issues, the other is 23, there is a point where the diagnosis stops and your choices begin. As I said, our only boundary was that my brother not be rude. I really wanted to enjoy our visit, as I haven't seen my family since July and we won't be able to travel for Christmas due to how it falls this year, and a lack of PTO. We almost made it. It's Saturday night, and we're all having a conversation about my brother being the favorite. LOL, not kidding. My mom had joking dismissed it, but then attempted to point out in a conversation with me that my brother's name on Life 360 was indeed the favorite child. Upon hearing this, my husband leans over to me and neutrally remarks that he didn't realize I was still on Life 360 with my family. I said that I was, as I thought when I moved, it would give my parents peace of mind to see me moving around on the map. He then comments that the logic there was funny, because if I got taken, my parents wouldn't know where I was even supposed to be. Again, he said this very neutrally, and to me. My brother immediately straightens up and calls my husband a dumbs. My husband, who doesn't agree with how my family treats me and can't stand my brother, immediately claps back with, "Actually, you're the dumbs." And they get into it. It ended with my brother threatening to break a glass bottle upside my husband's face and storming out of the house. Afterwards, my mom turns to my husband and says that she doesn't appreciate that kind of language in her home, and that arguing with my brother is not helpful. My husband retorts that my brother might get away with speaking to them that way, but he is not allowed to speak to us that way. My mum jumps to my brother's defense and they argued a bit more. Later, my dad came in and asked what happened. After explaining that my brother cannot cuss and threaten my husband, my dad said, "Well, you know that's just your brother." Honestly, I'm surprised we went this long without incident. We were there 32 hours total. I ended the night crying and realizing that my parents not holding my brother accountable for his actions ever, and defending him especially now, after communicating our boundaries clearly, is another way they are choosing him over me. I told my husband that we would not be returning to visit if my brother is present, and that he does not have an invitation to our home. My parents don't know yet. Wibta for telling my parents if my brother is present, we won't be? Last note. When my husband apologized the next morning for getting heated with my mom, her response was, "Thank you for apologizing. I won't ever apologize for my son's diagnosis, but it can get heated." After reading a couple of comments, I do want to clarify. I don't know what my brother's specific diagnosis is, but he does take medication to regulate it. For years, he has exhibited psychopathic tendencies like harming animals intentionally, not showing remorse, or taking accountability for situations where he's caused physical harm, and outwardly enjoying causing someone emotionally pain through words. I've also seen him exhibit way better control over his anger when he thinks it will benefit him, for example, in front of a girlfriend or in public spaces. He also can successfully live on his own, and he is currently AWOL from the army and hiding out at my parents' home. OP is not an AH for prioritizing her emotional well-being and setting boundaries with her toxic brother. Despite knowing his toxic side, OP's parents are AHs for not taking accountability for his abusive behavior and defending him. So I would rate OP's parents 3.5, and OP's toxic brother 2 out of 5, and OP 0 on the AH scale. Let's now move on to the next story from Pokemamic. AITA. If I threw away the things my ex left behind while he was moving, then blocked him, I, 23F, ended things with my ex, 24M, a little over a month ago. I ended things because I was basically doing everything. I was paying 80% of the bills and was expected to clean and make dinner on top of it. For context, I'm a second-year electrical apprentice, and he was thrifting/flipping things, not very frequently IMO, and working about 16 hours at his dad's antique store. I understand I would have to probably pay a bulk of the bills because I was making more than he was because he wasn't actually flipping items. But we had an original agreement that he would pay the utilities and what he could towards rent. Before we switched to another unit, he was paying a good chunk of rent, but unfortunately never followed the agreement to pay utilities. But I just let it slide because bills were getting paid. Along with the financial stress, he just demanded a lot of emotional attention, which was hard for me to give. I still did, because I loved him. But it was very draining when every day there was a new issue that would shake him to the core. I'm a closed-off person with my emotions, and only show them if I feel really comfortable with someone. But I could never really show him, because we were always tackling his issues, which were usually the same 5 issues, cycling through over and over again. He would always expect me to listen to any issues he had, but when I would bring something up, it would turn into an argument. For example, there was a time where I asked him to clean up more because I was doing the bulk of it, and I was told I was selfish and ignorant. When we weren't being intimate as much, I brought it up and was told I give him anxiety when I'm overly. And if there wasn't an argument, he would completely disregard what I said. Like instead of trimming his beard over a trash can, he would clog the sink time and time again and expect me to unclog it. I would ask him to always flush the toilet because there were multiple occasions I walked into a bathroom that smelt like fermented piss, and a couple occasions where there was a log waiting to greet me. Unfortunately, that request from me annoyed him. If I did something silly, there was a 50% chance I would annoy him, and he voiced that to me. There were plenty of times where he did something that annoyed me, but I would never voice that because why tell your partner they're annoying? My final straw was when he bought 31 hats for $12 and was given an offer to sell them from $500 or trade them in for $700 store credit. We had rent due the next week, and instead of selling the hats, he traded them even though I told him multiple times I thought he should sell them. He was $500 short that month, so I had to put that extra sum on my credit card. Unfortunately, that had been the 3rd consecutive month something like that happened. I know it's bad, and I'm dealing with the consequences of enabling him. When I mentioned it bothered me, and I didn't think it was a smart decision. Instead of apologizing, he showed me the vintage shirts he got and tried to justify his actions. When I ended things, he called me immature and made me sit next to him while he called his parents, so I could hear how heartbroken he was. After he left, he had his mom text me to coordinate times for him to pick up the dog and see her for a day, rather than coordinate plans to pack his stuff. He had accumulated a lot of things, I'm talking thousands of collectibles, that he was supposed to sell. After 2 weeks of him not getting things, I told his mom he should probably come and pack things while they wait to get keys for their new place. She made the excuse that he just started a new job at Target, so he wouldn't have time, but they would be able to have everything out by the end of the month. Fast forward to when they were moving his stuff out, I came back to an absolute mess, which I understand. I feel like that could have been avoided if they would have listened to my suggestion. At this point, he was finally mature enough to talk to me and admitted he was extremely overwhelmed. So that's why things were the way they were. If only someone would have told them that. They finally got the last of his stuff out and I got his key. But now that I'm looking to move into a cheaper situation, I found things like his childhood trophies, some LeBron James pictures he was super hyped about getting a few years ago, hats, a giant bag of Legos, I kind of just want to sell those, golf clubs, etc. I know for a fact he took a lot of things that I liked more than he did, and having to deal with so much financial strain because of him, I kind of just want to trash the remainder of what's left and block him on everything. I just feel like he got off easy with not having to deal with paying all the rent at this place and the credit card debt. AITA, if I just trash the rest of what's here. OP is not an AH for ending a toxic relationship with her ex. Her ex is an AH for taking full advantage of her, both emotionally and financially. Her reaction is 100% justified. She did nothing wrong. Instead, she is protecting her emotional well-being. So, I would rate OP 0 out of 5, and OP's X 3.5 on the AH scale. Let's now move on to the next story from 1_Ranger_387. AITA for thinking my 29M GF 28F is change-averse and affecting our relationship. My girlfriend and I have been dating for 3 years. I need to preface this by saying I have ADHD. I have a lot of the usual ADHD issues: being late, poor emotional regulation, strong sense of rejection sensitivity. Now, as our relationship evolved, I have noticed that I actually listen to my girlfriend and make changes so that the ADHD doesn't get in the way and doesn't upset her. I make more conscious efforts to be on time, and I take my meds to make sure I'm emotionally regulated when I'm with her. We're also from 2 different cultures. She is American, and I am Indian. I have put in significant effort to understand her interests and hobbies and cultural references. Of course, this also helps me understand American culture better as I live in America, so the reverse might not be as appealing for her. As time went on, I've actually ended up liking her hobbies so much I do them by myself. Like I bake and do embroidery, even when I'm just hanging out by myself. Also, we live apart, and I am the one who is always commuting to her place. She has a dog, and my building doesn't allow dogs. This has certain emotional, logistical, and financial costs associated with it. Like, I need to Uber to hers all the time. I don't have time sometimes to grocery shop and cook, so I'm forced to buy food outside. Now, my issue is I feel I am the one who's always having to put an effort creating a version of myself that my girlfriend likes. For example, I have told her multiple times that I enjoy doing gym physical activities with her, and like it when she takes an interest in my culture. But she doesn't really do these things. I'm also significantly fitter than her. She's not overweight, but also not at all toned, and works from home, and sometimes doesn't leave her house for days, besides walking the dog. On the other hand, I run marathons and look very conventionally attractive. The few times we did go on a run, I found it very hot, and we had amazing right after. So, when I say that I'm losing my attraction for her, it's not just purely physical, but rather the idea of seeing someone just sitting in their sweatpants all day working on the computer is not very appealing. I think this is one of the reasons our life has taken a nosedive in the last 12 months. I've hinted at why this might be, and her suggestion is that I should take ED pills. I already take medication for my ADHD, and the thought of taking annoys me. Like, Why can't she make a change that would reinvigorate our life? She is also very weird about money and effort. She keeps tabs a lot on who paid last and makes sure she's not getting shortchanged. When she does something, she also records that as a major effort and makes sure to mention that. I don't do these things because I think it's exhausting and reduces relationships to a form of debt exchange. Like, sure, there needs to be equal effort, but I feel she only looks at the efforts she makes and expects reciprocity in the exact same way and turns a blind eye towards the things I do for her. Is this a cultural or a gender or social thing? ID. I think a lot of these problems are because she is extremely change averse. It's really hard to get her to see different perspectives apart from the ones she's set with. She goes to therapy, but I'm convinced that her therapist is the world's worst therapist. Her issues have not abated over 3 years, and her therapist is against medication to improve mental health. I feel all the changes for the better and emotional labor go primarily only one way in this relationship. I'm sure she doesn't see it this way, which is part of the reason I'm here. I want to better understand how I can help by A. Girlfriend be less change averse. B. Think about this situation differently for myself. I feel if my girlfriend is this change averse, then a cross-cultural relationship where we have different values won't work out. My perspective on relationships is it is something you actively wake up and work on and listen to your partner's needs and wants, but hers is a more romantic ideal of something that just happens, and I feel she is increasingly unhappy and thinks to some extent that I am what happened to her LOL. AITA for expecting that my GF needs to be less rigid and put in efforts for me and our relationship within the context mentioned above. OP is not an AH for being concerned about his girlfriend's efforts in their relationship. In this case, OP's girlfriend is an AH for not putting any efforts in the relationship. The relationship doesn't seem to be working in the long term. As for scores, I would rate OP's girlfriend 2.5 and OP 0 out of 5 on the AH scale. Let's now move on to the next story from XX AITA for sending a screenshot of a paragraph he sent to me, confessing his feelings to his ex out of jealousy. I, F16, liked a guy in high school. When I first saw him, I told my friends he looked like a cartoon character and was updatable because he was dating one of my pretty friends, Rory, at that time. However, when the new year started, we were in the same class. He sat beside my best friend and was friendly and chatty, so I thought he had a crush on her. On his birthday, when I wished him saying, HBD hope, you get your Rory just because IDK, it was the first time I ever talked to him, and he started asking questions about my ex because we were all in the same class, and my ex was his best friend in kindergarten. He said whatever, and a few days later, he texted, so you don't text first? Eventually, we became best friends, and I started liking him. He had already broken up with his girlfriend Rory, and I even helped him try to get back with her with all the best relationship advice earlier. So one day, I told him, and after 2 days, his ex Rory told a common friend of ours that I liked him. I thought the only way she could know is if he told her. I broke the friendship, saying I didn't want to be involved in that drama, and he said he didn't tell her anything but had met her. Prior to this argument, at the start of this friendship, I told him I could set him up with my best friend Sandy. After many months, we started talking again because he asked for some notes and started flirting. He confessed that he liked me too, and I agreed to confess face to face because I didn't want to say, I like you on chat. I had never moved on from him because he was my best friend, and he never judged me. But then came the cricket tournament. He said he missed me when we didn't text, and I was kind of rude to him because I was still not over Rory, who was still on his Snapchat and had contact with him. We didn't talk for a week, and I couldn't text because we had an argument. But when I turned up to practice for cricket, he was there with Sandy, laughing, and I felt jealousy as she had already tried stealing my boyfriend in the past. So on the second day of practice, he talked to me very rudely and even took Sandy for a ride on his scooter because she had cried. He consoled her by holding her hand and making her laugh. They took more than 15 minutes to reach a place 5 minutes away, and that day, he kept his hand on hers again. I was never the overprotective or over-jealous kind of person. Not that it's bad, I'm just kind of like my mom. So, I stopped talking to him, and when he texted for a get-together, he also said he wanted to clear stuff out with me. I replied, wouldn't your girl mind? And he said, what girl? He said my best friend wasn't his girlfriend, He didn't come to the get-together as he was very tired, and the next time we met, he didn't talk to me and left. I watched him like a puppy. My heart had already been broken when he took her hand to comfort her. I blocked him and cut all contacts, and he noticed within an hour. He texted my other friend, let's say Darla, that I needed to hear him out. I agreed and unblocked him. He sent me a whole paragraph, and I eventually agreed to meet him alone. I don't know why, but one night I just said, "There's no point in clearing stuff out," and he replied, "Kay, I cried that night. I'm so embarrassed to say this, but I texted him again to clear stuff out again." And he eventually agreed. The first time we agreed to meet, he couldn't show up. The second time I was busy. With all the emotions in me, I was like, God, I will meet this guy at any cost, even though I knew God was against it. He didn't show up, and thankfully I didn't reach the destination as he didn't pick up any of my calls. I blocked him again, and he texted me on WhatsApp, saying it was because a surprise text happened in his class, and his mom wouldn't let him leave. I cried that day again. We didn't meet up to clear things up and became kind of friends, I guess. He texted me that he missed me and started sending romantic reels or whatever, and wrote paragraphs. I replied, "Still doesn't change the past," and even said that you've given me a chance in the past. All I'm asking for is a last chance. I saw my self-respect that was already on the ground, crippled, and never texted him back. But one day, we were in the group chat, and Darla made a sticker of a bunch of girls, including Rory, and a guy in the center of them all, making fun of the guy because he looked gay. So he sent that sticker to his ex, Rory, and she started dissing us. Even though the sticker wasn't even about her, she said, "How about I make a sticker of you and that guy, her ex, and write one-sided love, and then tell you that it wasn't even about you." This hurt my ego. I'm very self-aware. And I sent her a screenshot of a paragraph that he had sent to me, and even blurred most of it. I confronted him because I felt that he might have told something to her, but he denied. I felt like and regretted sending that screenshot to her. He confronted me, and I apologized. When my birthday came, he wished me and said he couldn't write a paragraph because he hated getting his paragraphs leaked. I said, "Fair enough." A month later, we were seated next to each other, and I still hadn't moved on from him completely. On the last day, accepting all we had been through, I smiled and started being happy independent of what others did or what he did, like talk to Sandy. I gave him a smile and later texted him, "I'm glad it ended in a good way." He replied, "Yeah." I wasn't entirely happy with his reply, but looking back, I always had a hopeless, melancholic feeling that lingered in my heart about the possibility of him and me. But that day, I didn't feel that. I feel I still miss him, but it's all right. I will eventually stop missing him, but I did truly love him. I hope that one day I entirely move on from him. Also, give me some advice if you can. P.S. I even vented out to AI about him and made AI make a list of all the red flags. OP is not an AH for moving out of a toxic relationship. OP's boyfriend is an AH for being prioritizing others over OP. OP's reaction is 100% justified. She did nothing wrong. OP has the right to protect her emotional well-being. So moving on is the best option. As for scores, I would rate OP's boyfriend 2.5 and OP 0 out of 5 on the AH scale. Let's now jump onto the next story from mental_gymnast_. AITA for ghosting a friend for feeding into a psychotic episode. Me and Ron got into a bit of an argument about me sleeping over at Jade's house after we had been drinking. Me and Jade went to the bar together, and Ron showed up part of the way through the night and left about 20 minutes later. He tried to come pick me up, but I sent him home. When I got back into Jade's house, we ended up talking about the situation a fair bit, and that's when the episode started. I started to think that Ron hated me, and that he was angry that I was friends with Jade. I talked about this with Jade because we always talked about everything. I feel like it was pretty obvious that I was in a delusional episode, because I always start talking fast, zoning out, looping back to the same topic, and getting overly fidgety, and this definitely wasn't an exception. Jade always could tell when I was getting delusional within seconds of the episode starting, but this time, instead of talking me down, they started to feed into it. They told me that they saw him watching us in the bar, hiding in the far side of the bar, and that he only came over to talk to us after Jade spotted him, which immediately flung me into full-blown paranoia. I started getting false memories of him, and thinking that he was violent and cruel, and Jade only backed this up saying, "I've known this for a while now." but I didn't want to tell you because you wouldn't have believed me. They told me that they were pointing things out over time, trying to get me to realize what was happening, and that they were glad I was so easy to manipulate, or they wouldn't have ever convinced me. The more we talked about it, the worse it got. They started saying that Ron was cruel to me whenever I spent time with them and my family, and I ate it up and started creating memories of this happening. I became more and more convinced that he was trying to isolate me, and as the night went on, I started to think that he was actively stalking me and that he was planning on killing me. I would get scared at every noise and asked Jade to help me check the house to make sure he didn't break in, and barred the bedroom door. We even started saying things like, "Wow, we must be tired. This is crazy. We're delusional," and wrote everything down on a piece of paper because I thought he had my phone bugged. The next few days were only worse, as I started to think that everywhere he had been was bugged. My room, my car, everything. I spent a lot more time with Jade because I was scared, but the more time we spent together, the worse the delusion got. It got to the point where I started telling people that I was in danger, and that if I disappeared, it was Ron. I said this to my father, who thankfully is used to my episodes, 4 friends, one of which was also Ron's friend, and Jade's family. I still spent some time with Ron, but I was terrified of him. I was trying to make sure he didn't think that I knew about what was supposedly happening. Me and Jade spent hours planning escape plans. They even tried to convince me to cheat on Ron. This was towards the week mark of the episode, so it was starting to wear off, and I finally started to regain my grasp on reality. I slowly stopped talking about it, and spent more time with Ron and was less scared of him. But in total, this episode lasted over 2 weeks. I ended up telling Ron about what happened, and he was furious at Jade. He also knows about the fact that I have episodes, but he was pissed at Jade for making it worse. I didn't want to stop being friends with Jade, but over time I started to realize that I couldn't trust someone that would feed into my delusions. I slowly stopped talking to Jade until I finally just blocked them, and I thought it was over. I still hate myself for believing all that, and I wish I never told anyone about the delusion, but thankfully, nothing ever came of it. The friend of Ron's I talked about it even cut off Jade before I did, and still talks to both me and him, but I still feel horrible because it could have been a lot worse than it was. This was months ago now, and I wasn't going to post about it, but Jade has now started trying to contact me through our mutual friends, as well as posting about me on their social media, saying things like how they want to cut that head off, calling me a and a cunt, and that I need to unblock them and explain why I ghosted them. I never explained this to them, but I feel like it's pretty obvious. Our friends seem to be taking Jade's side, but I'm scared to tell people about what happened because 1, I don't really want everyone knowing how bad my psychosis gets, and 2, I really don't want to provoke Jade. I've considered the possibility that maybe Jade believed this as well, and we just happened to both have an episode at the same time, but they have never had a delusion as severe as that as far as I know, and it also seemed extremely intentional in retrospect. Them basically bragging about the fact that they were manipulating me for months into noticing what was happening, and continuously feeding into my worst paranoias, seem pretty intentional to me, but apparently that's not how everyone sees it. I understand that my mental illnesses are my responsibility, but I personally feel like actively feeding into someone's delusions is over the line. Even though everything ended up okay, I feel like I can't trust anyone anymore, especially not when I'm in an episode. So, am I the for ghosting my best friend without an explanation after this? Edit. For added context, I have been in therapy for 7 years and have tried a variety of antipsychotic medications. I just haven't found one that works for me. And yes, I do have false memories, but typically they don't last very long in these contexts and entirely disappear after they're acted on. OP is not an AH for cutting off contact with her friend Jade. OP's friend is an AH for being harassing OP despite knowing OP's medical condition. OP did nothing wrong by ghosting her friend. She did this to protect her mental peace. So, I would rate the OP's friend 1.5 and OP 0 out of 5 on the AH scale. Let's now move on to the next story from Tizzaburner 4. AITA, for cutting off my cousin because of her boyfriend. My cousin Meg, 23F, and I, 26F, have been inseparable since childhood. She never had close guy friends, so all the guys she met were my friends, and thus my age. She got into a relationship with my friend Charlie when she was 20, and it ended on a very bad note. I completely cut it off with Charlie for her sake, even though both parties were at fault, because to me, Meg was way more important. About a year ago, she started dating my other friend Ash. Now, at first, I had thought Ash was a nice guy, which is why I was happy for Meg. But over time, I started realizing he was a terrible opportunist and manipulator. Ash got his first job because of my recommendation, and many other career-related opportunities through me. I am very gullible and easy to emotionally manipulate, which he took advantage of. Meanwhile, he had been spreading a lot of about me to others. These people came up to me to tell me about all of this. I have even confronted Ash about these, but he apologized and made excuses about being in a bad place and stuff when he did all that. I never told Meg in detail about Ash's true colors because I could see how in love she was. And what little I told her, she chose to believe Ash. Soon, I started seeing signs of Ash manipulating Meg against me as well. A couple of months back, I broke up with someone I thought I would spend my life with. I expected support from Meg like I had supported her, but she was too obsessed with Ash. Then one day, I found out that Meg and Ash and another couple, our common friends, went on a trip together in which me and my ex were also supposed to go. Meg mistakenly revealed it in a group chat and then instantly deleted it all. I was pissed, not because they went without me, since unlike them, I am single, but rather because they thought they had to hide it from me. Still, I tried making light out of the situation by saying they don't need to hide it because I don't want to be a third wheel anyway. But rather, Meg and Ash started acting like I was butthurt and gaslighting them. Ash started posting indirect stories, targeting me like a teenager, and I got pissed. I had no desire to talk to Ash anymore. But I confronted Meg, telling her that I am hurt by this, and she just went off on me saying, if I have a problem with Ash, I should take it up with him. I told her Ash doesn't matter to me anymore. You do, because you are my blood, and I want to let you know what hurt me. She acted very nonchalant and terribly rude. I supported both of these people when they had nothing and no one. And I helped them solve relationship issues, starting from cheating accusations to meeting the family and all. And in return, I got nothing. Ash tried to sabotage my career behind my back, and Meg turned a blind eye because she was so much in love. I received no apology after that. I did not try contacting either of them. Even Meg put up a few indirect stories targeting me. I never validated anything with any response. It felt weird. I talked to Meg almost every day about everything, and now we haven't been in touch for a month. At first, I was very depressed, but now I don't really care about it much. But some family wedding is coming up, and I might have to see Meg there. I might completely avoid it because of this reason. I am only worried about our families noticing the tension between us because they have always seen us joined at the hips. But I am pretty sure if I revealed all the truth to our families, they would know I am not at fault here. But this might also cause a rift between our parents. So, did I do the right thing by cutting her off? Or am I just not seeing what I did wrong because I'm an a-hole? Edit 1. Meg didn't do anything wrong directly. It's just that I always picked her over everyone else, and I was selfish, stupid, to assume she would do the same. I cut off another really close friend because Meg did not like her, but she did act immature by putting up stories targeting me. Besides, I did not even go to her to vent about Ash. I just told her that she had hurt me by assuming I would get mad at her for going to the trip. My problem was hiding the trip, not going. In this conversation, I just mentioned that Ash has hurt me too. That's when she said to go to him. I never want to make her pick, which is why I cut it off. OP is not an AH for cutting ties with her cousin and her boyfriend. Ash and Meg are highly selfish and opportunists, and they don't care about OP. OP's decision to cut off ties with is very good for her mental peace and well-being. As for scores, I would rate OP's cousin and her BF 2.5 out of 5 on the AH scale, and OP gets nothing. Let's now jump onto the next story from Never the Right Choice. AITA for not giving him a choice? I, 33F, am 33 weeks pregnant with my first boy and last child. This baby was planned. Our whole life was planned. Due to jealousy and spite and general nastiness, his 32M ex, 32F, mother to his current youngest son Priyars, basically gave him an ultimatum. If you stay in the relationship with her, me, and have this child, you can't have a relationship with our son, and you have to have a relationship, co-parenting / romantic, with me, X. This caused my son's father to have a mental breakdown and the end of our relationship when I was 28 weeks pregnant. As you can imagine, it was exceptionally difficult, and the stress did cause issues in my pregnancy. In August, she moved to a neighboring country to her hometown, despite having no support, and at the time, no job or house. After weeks of silence, my baby's father sat me down and began opening up about how she had been speaking to him, things she'd said, etc. And he admitted his fault in it all too. He explained how he felt he couldn't be something to everybody, and he did the only thing so he could be there for all his children, 4 including ours. That I could understand. We came to an agreement we would still raise our son together and be friends. A few awkward weeks later, he came to me and opened up some more, admitting the ultimatum had been issued and that she had tried to kiss him, and that she had in fact had/has a boyfriend for months prior to this, a fact I think despicable. She destroyed our family and has her own boyfriend. And on his last visit to see his son, she screamed and became hysterical when he attempted to defend me as I have done nothing wrong. Since my child's father has come clean and admitted everything that has happened, we have become closer in our friendship and got through a lot of stuff together. It's been nice. However, in the back of my mind, I am always worried. Worried that when our son comes, she will do something heinous to me and our child. Or she will enforce the ultimatum and it will cause another breakdown. The only way I believe I can help is once our son is born. I ask his father to write our boy a letter explaining how much he loves him, but he has to leave and he goes and gives this woman and his other son what she wants. I can raise our boy and I wouldn't think any less of him, but it's the only way I can see a way out for him. In all of this, I am putting aside my heartbreak and struggles. I am being empathetic to a woman who in one fell swoop preyed on a man's vulnerabilities and broke apart a family and essentially tainted a relationship between a man and his unborn son. A few points before people ask questions. No, he did not cheat on her with me. He left her because there was no communication, affection, or substance to their relationship. She was, in my opinion, coercively abusive and manipulative. He left and got with me. When he did leave, she prevented him from seeing their son for months. When she finally did allow him to see their son, it was on her terms and her terms alone. She allowed her new boyfriend to meet their son, but I have never met him, and nor would I have pushed to meet him or overstep in any capacity. He has said in no uncertain terms, had she never issued the ultimatum, we would still be together, having our baby and getting married, and that I am the person he loves. His choices, according to her, are as clarified. Be single and have all his children. Be with her and have his other son. She already put a wedge between him and his older two. That Wave spent a lot of time trying to repair, and that would be undone. Or be with me, have 3 of his 4 sons, and nothing to do with the current youngest. I am not a choice. I will not be considered a choice, and I have never and will never force him to choose. AITA, if I just remove myself and our son entirely? Update. I have mentioned removing myself and our son entirely from the equation, and his response was, "That's not something I want to think about right now. I'm trying to live day by day. That is more confirmation of what I need to do, but I still feel terrible taking that choice from him." OP is not an AH here for trying to protect her unborn child from ongoing emotional manipulation by her partner's ex-wife. OP's partner's ex-wife is an AH for trying to strain the relationship between OP and OP's husband. As for scores, I would rate OP's partner's X 3.5 and an OP 0 out of 5 on the AH scale. Let's now move on to the next story from Gold-Net-4632. I'm the bad one for not giving a gift according to the cost of the wedding. I was invited to a wedding, I confirmed my attendance, and they sent me the itinerary. When I checked it, I saw that I was only invited to the ceremony. I asked the bride, "Hey, so I'm only invited to the ceremony?" She said yes, that was correct, since the reception and catering were more intimate. She explained that the guests at the party were selective, because it was going to be in an amphitheater. I said, okay, that was fine. I was really excited to go to this wedding. It would be held in a little town that looked medieval, like an ancient Mediterranean village. My brother asked if I had already made the reservation, and I told him no, because the bride hadn't told me I needed to book it. The bride wrote to me, apologized, and sent me the link so I could make the reservation myself. There was less than a month left, and this place usually requires reservations 2 or 3 months in advance. I told my boyfriend, and he said if I didn't feel comfortable, I shouldn't go, but if I wanted to, he could go with me. We could rent a villa nearby, I'd attend the ceremony, then return with him, and do other activities. I told this to the bride, and she said she wanted everyone to stay in the same place because she didn't want any complications, and reminded me that my invitation was without a +1. I told her that what she was asking was unreasonable because they hadn't blocked a spot for me when they made the reservations. Also, you're only inviting me to the ceremony. Not that it's not valuable, but your wedding is a destination wedding. I can't just go back the same day, so what am I supposed to do while everyone is at the wedding? She responded, "Okay, do whatever you want." I thought about it and wondered if it was worth going. The trip would be 5 hours, traffic permitting. The villa we found was inside the complex but far from the ceremony site, and since it was last minute, it was one of the most expensive. I swallowed my disrespect and decided not to go, without drama. I haven't been to many weddings, but I know that when you confirm, you're supposed to give a gift. I googled how much is reasonable, and in several places, it said that $50 is the minimum. That's what I deposited into the account on the invitation. The wedding passed. My brother told me the bride was upset with me for not going, and that it was rude after confirming. I told him I had deposited her gift. I told my brother I deposited $50, and he laughed. I think he thought I was being sarcastic or joking. His wife made a bigger drama out of it, or I don't know what she told her sister, because the bride wrote to me, even though she was supposed to be on her honeymoon, and told me I had offended her twice. First, for giving her only $50 when her wedding cost more than that, meaning the gift should have been higher, and I should have considered who she was marrying. And second, for not attending. I told her that with the treatment she gave me, I wasn't going to go, and that I only gave the $50 because I confirmed my attendance. Had I known I was only invited to the ceremony, I wouldn't have accepted to go. She said I was being very rude and classless, to which I responded that she wasn't showing much class by judging my gift. My brother told me that this also made him look bad in front of the family, and that he didn't want the groom to be upset with him, because he didn't want to ruin their friendship. He said that if I was going to be rude, I should have told him, and he would have given a gift in my name. I replied that I could see where his priorities were, and how he was putting other people's feelings above his sister's. I congratulated him on gaining a new family, told him I'd only see him at funerals, and blocked him. I think that makes me the bad one, and I don't think anyone will understand me. My boyfriend is on my side, but he says I'm taking my frustrations out on my brother, and it's not his fault. My brother was my favorite person in the world. OP is not an AH for not attending the wedding, given the treatment OP received from the bride. The bride is an AH for demanding gift from OP, and OP's brother is also an AH for prioritizing the bride over her sister. As for scores, I would rate the bride 2.5, and OP's brother 1.5 out of 5 on the AH scale, and OP gets nothing.